Hey, everybody, this is AJ Ali. This is podcast number 1 for Love is the Answer. And I've got my dear friend, Jason Armstrong here with me. It's so fitting, Jason, to kick this off with you, man. I'm so proud of the work that you've been doing there. And, I just look up to you like so many other people do. So to kick things off, how are you doing and how's your family doing?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. My family is doing good. Just like everybody else in the country, and we're all trying to adjust to the situation that we're dealing with right now.
Yes.
I'll coin a term that I heard somebody use the other day. We're having to adjust instead of to the new normal, to the new abnormal. Because, man, we don't know, exactly what we're in store for yet. But man, we're just trying to stay positive. And stay upbeat, and just take it day by day and take it one day at a time, man.
That's really all we can do, right? Because God has given us today to work with.
Absolutely.
Tomorrow's in the past. I mean, tomorrow hasn't been promised. Yesterday's in the past, so we got to do the best that we can for each day that God gives us.
Absolutely.
So look, man, I'm gonna get this question out of the way. Because I got to ask you. Michael Brown Jr. was killed by a Ferguson police officer in August of 2014. In July 2019 is when you became the Ferguson Police Department's 6th leader in 5 years. That must have been a huge decision for you and your family.
Oh, a major decision for me and my family. Absolutely. The numbers though are a little misleading when read some of the articles and they talk about the 6 different leaders, because one of the things that they're counting in there are the interim chiefs that were
Okay.
and so of the 6, I believe there was 3 times that the same individual was an interim chief. He was just an interim chief at a different time, and so they're adding all of those numbers in. And, so it looks a little, or sounds a little bit more glaring than it is. When the incident happened in 2014, I am the 2nd chief that has been hired by the city of Ferguson.
Gotcha.
There have only been 2 permanent chiefs that have been hired by the city of Ferguson.
Okay.
And I'm the 2nd one. And so the rest of it is just, when the first chief left, they had the assistant chief at the time. He was the interim chief. And so they count him as 1. Then they brought in an outside interim chief. And so they count him as 2. And he was supposed to stay until they went through and hired a permanent chief, but he didn't stay that long. He left. And so the previous interim chief, he was put back in as interim chief. So now he's on his 2nd stint as interim chief. And he was in place until they hired a permanent chief. So he was in a few times, and so they count him multiple times. But I'm only the 2nd individual that has been hired by the city to be the permanent chief in place.
All right.
Yes,
so thank you for clearing that up, because that's what people see, right? When they Google what's going on in Ferguson, right? So how has everything been? Before you answer that, on your LinkedIn profile, which is where we initially met. Before we met in person, we met on LinkedIn, right? So you have 2 quotes that I really love. Change does not happen overnight. And in order to impact the big picture, focus on the little victories.
Yes.
So share that big picture with us. And, what's the big picture that you have for Ferguson? And then maybe share 1 or 2 of those little victories.
Well, the big picture here in Ferguson is just, man, doing my part, helping along in my part, and helping this community just be a good, thriving community, where people function as one. And you won't hear me say anything about, man, it's my job to lead the charge on this, or it's my responsibility to do this or do that, because I understand what my place is and where my place is. And I understand that I'm just a piece of the puzzle. But there are a lot of pieces of the puzzle. And the police department is just a piece of the pie of this community. And so, the big picture is us doing everything that we can from, you know, the police department side of things, just, you know, me as a person, you know, just who I am and Jason Armstrong as a person, and what could I feed into this community, you know, to help this community thrive and to help this community, you know, reach its full potential, so to speak. And so that's, you know, that's what the overall big picture is. Inside the police department, you know, it's us, you know, making the necessary changes that we need to make, us implementing things that need to be implemented, so we can be, you know, one of the best police departments, you know, that's out there, that's around. You know, we have a consent decree here. So of course, big picture for me is us getting into the compliance with the consent decree, you know, so we're no longer up under the consent decree. It's just meeting all the stipulations and all the guidelines of the consent decree that they have put in place, you know, showing what they want to see from the police department. And so once we're able to fulfill all of that stuff and get from out under the consent decree, you know, that is a big goal, you know, a big objective of mine.
Okay. And how many more years are there for that?
It depends. It depends on how soon you can get into compliance with it. And so once you get into compliance with the order, then you have to remain in substantial compliance for 2 years before you're eligible to come off of the consent decree. And so for every city, it's a little bit different. I think the quickest one that I've heard, a city was on one for 7 years. There's another city that I know of has been on one for 18 years, and there's no end in sight, you know, for that particular city. And so it's one of the things that, you know, man, we're really being aggressive and trying to, you know, to work on it as hard as we can, you know, to get into compliance, to show, you know, that, all right, the city is serious about this, and we're serious about, you know, meeting the needs of the community through it.
Now, I have no doubt that you're making a lot of friends in the community. What are the glimmers of hope, you know, for you? What kind of groups are you working with, and, you know, where are those bright spots in the community?
And there are a lot of them. That's been one of the best things that I've experienced in coming here, is just been the support that I've gotten from the majority of the community. You know, a lot of people, and I can't even say a lot of people, but there were some outspoken people that had reservations, you know, about me coming up here for this job because I was an outsider. You know, the other candidate that was up for the job was an internal candidate. And so, you know, you had some people that they already have relationships and a history with the internal candidate. And so, you know, they preferred for the internal candidate to get the job. And so by an outsider coming in here, you know, it's almost like I had to win these people over. And that's something, you know, that's not uncommon in law enforcement. That's one of the things that law enforcement has been trying to do in the communities that they don't have good relationships, is trying to win people over. And so, but the best way that I know how to do that is just by being myself and being the person that I am. And so, you know, I'm willing to work with everybody, and I want to, and I try to work with everybody. And so, you know, whether we're talking about, you know, pastors of a church or a ministers association that we have here in the city has a lot of neighborhood associations. You know, the entire city is broken up into different neighborhood groups. And so each neighborhood association, you know, has regular meetings, whether they're monthly meetings or quarterly meetings. And so, you know, the police department, we always attend their meetings, try to provide information on things that's going on in their areas, and have some dialogue between them to get some feedback and some information about what issues they're seeing or what concerns they have about their neighborhoods. And so, and as you see from some of, you know, my activity on LinkedIn, is I'm real big on community events. And so, you know, I try to do my part to participate in, you know, as many community events as I'm able to, and to support all these different entities and these different organizations, because I want that reciprocated when the police department is hosting an event, when the police department is doing something. And that's, you know, that's part of what we're trying to build here, is, you know, it's just support. You know, hey, man, I want to support you and these entities as much as I can. And just knowing, all right, you know, I'm going to need some of that same support with some of the different things that we're trying to do. And that's what this is supposed to look like. And that's what I truly feel in my heart, is that that's what this thing is supposed to look like. That's what a community is supposed to look like, is everybody supporting everybody. You know, it doesn't mean that we agree on everything. It doesn't mean that we have the same vision for every single thing. Okay. But all right, I can come to the table and I can support you in what you're trying to do. And I can share my thoughts and opinions. And just the same as, you know, I'm willing for you to share your thoughts and opinions, you know, with me about some of the things that we have going on and what we're doing. And I think, you know, just having that dialogue and that communication is the way that we see progress.
Man, I'm so glad you said that, all of that, because I've been all over the country with our film Walking While Black, Love is the Answer, and now we're doing things with our book. We've been all over with our workshops. Recently, I was in New York City, and this is end of February. So this is right before everything pretty much, you know, got shut down. We're not traveling now, but I was at Fort Washington Collegiate Church, and they really tried hard to reach out to the NYPD, including folks who had come to their church many times to host NYPD programs reaching out to the community. And apparently NYPD has a policy of not attending any events that they don't have control over. So they refused to send someone to this screening of a film that was designed to improve relations between police and the community. And these people were heartbroken, man. They really wanted them there. And I know you can't disparage any other departments. I know you wouldn't want to, but
yeah,
you know, just saying that you're doing such great work there. And I'm seeing some places are doing what you're doing, and then there's other places that are kind of drawing a line in the sand, like, you know, we're not going to cross this line. We're only going to come to you on our terms. And I think they're missing out, because there's people that really want to embrace, you know, a good relationship. And I see, you know, I follow you on social media. I see all the great things you're doing, and, you know, it makes me happy to see that. And, you know, what do you say to, you know, any department that doesn't want to mix things up and, you know, and be like, you know, family at a family reunion or Thanksgiving dinner with their community members?
I think the big part, the big thing that plays a role when you see things like that happen, you know, a lot of times it has to deal with past experiences and a certain level of history, you know, that may be between, you know, a certain person or a certain entity or a certain group. And so one of the things that you know, I really try to work hard at is getting to know people and meeting people that I can partner with, where I can leverage some of their associations and I can leverage, you know, some of the ties that they have to certain parts of the community. You know, everybody doesn't want to see the police walk through the door.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
And so we have to be mindful of that. And so, but there's some doors that I really need to walk through, that I want to walk through, but I know I may not be received well if I walk through that door. And so how I try to look, but I can't write them off and say, okay, well, I'm never going to walk through that door, or I'm not going to associate with that individual or with that group, because, man, I believe everybody has something important to add to this community and add to what we're trying to do. And so I think I bear that responsibility to trying to find a way to, okay, I may not be able to walk through that door, but all right, what other partnerships and what other relationships do I have in the community that I could go to somebody and I could talk to them and maybe they could walk through that door on my behalf, to have the initial conversation and see if we can come to a common ground where we can, you know, where we can generate or get to the point where it's me walking through that door or it's one of my officers walking through that door. But some of the things that have damaged some of that in communities when we're talking about police community relationships is you've had some police departments that have sent officers to events or to meetings or what have you, and all it was just an all-out verbal attack against the police and against those officers that showed up there. And so that's another thing that, you know, as law enforcement leaders that, you know, we try to be cognizant of is, you know, what is the purpose of what we're coming together for? Now, some people are more comfortable with what do they call it? The tough conversations.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some people are a lot more comfortable with those tough conversations than others are. And so as a leader, you know, as we're trying to build this thing up and we're trying to have these, you know, intense dialogues and really get to the root cause of some of the problems or what the past or what the history has been, is, all right, you know, I mean, you got to know what people's strengths and weaknesses are, and you got to know what people's skill set is. And so if I'm going into that arena, or if I'm sending somebody into that arena, you know, I got to make sure I'm sending somebody that I know can handle, you know, what that arena may look like. Now, if it's just something where it's just an all-out attack, you know, on the officers, and nobody is there trying to get an understanding of anything, that environment is not going to be successful. And so, you know, I've seen that happen before, and I've seen, you know, where the end result of something like that happening was, okay, you know, we're not going back to that place anymore, or we're not going to attend anything that they do because, you know, they're not interested in hearing from us or hearing our side or our perspective. They just want to attack us on everything. And so, but some topics, you know, are just that volatile that, you know, man, people are very passionate and emotional about it. And that's why one of the things that I try to do, and something that we see, you know, people or police departments having success with, is if we're going into a setting that we know, all right, man, this is, you know, could be the topic that we're talking about is something that, you know, is has a lot of tension associated with it.
Yeah.
Try to bring in, you know, some moderators or some neutral parties. Try to find some neutral parties that can help, you know, balance the conversation. And so it's not just looked at as, okay, the police on one side and then the community on the other side of whatever this conversation is, but trying to bring some people to the table that, you know, okay, they're not a part of the police department. You know, they may not be a part of that community, so to speak. You know, maybe a trained professional, you know, in mediation or something like that. And that's one of the things that we're doing here in Ferguson. You know, with some of the upcoming dialogues that we're going to be having with, you know, between the police department and community members. All right, man, we have a professional mediation service that is coming in, and it's their job to manage those dialogues and to keep everybody in there, you know, on a level playing field. And, you know, so they don't have an allegiance to any of us. Their only allegiance is to just ensuring that everybody's voice can be heard. Everybody has a chance, you know, to share their thoughts and their perspective on things, and give everybody that fair chance to do so. And so, you know, that's some of the ways that we try to combat that. But some places, you know, I've seen that where, you know, the police department or officers aren't going to go into certain environments because it's you know, they feel as though they're just going to get attacked, and you know, there's really no, you know, they don't have a voice in that setting. And so the same thing that a lot of the community members are asking for is just a voice with the police. You know, we have to have that two-way street, that two-way communication with.
Now, when we did our inaugural National Day of Reconciliation, that was last September 17th. The second annual is coming up September 17th. Again, it might wind up being a virtual event, depending on how things are going.
Well, maybe.
Yeah. But you had Jose Aguayo and his organization hosting, and your police department participated. And, you know, I got to be honest, man, I wanted Ferguson to be a part of this. And we had about a dozen cities participating around the country. I was a little worried, but not too worried, because I knew that you were there, and I knew the good work that you had set out to do. You had been there only a few months at that time, but I had already heard stirrings of good things, you know, about, hey, this chief, he's a man of the people. He's really here to bring everybody together. So did you have any trepidation going into that event? What was it like, and what made you hopeful about that event, the National Day of Reconciliation?
Man, I have trepidation about everything that so I'm not even going to try to fake like that doesn't exist in my world.
All right.
And so, but that's what my job is, man, is I have to make decisions, and I have to make tough decisions. And I don't always make the right decision, but every decision that I make comes from a good place. It it comes from my heart, man. And it comes from, just me thinking really intently and being intentional about the decisions that I make. And so, when you sent me the information about it, and when I read through it and I got a chance to learn, a little bit about it, the big thing that my big takeaway, even before hosting the event, was, the documentary, all the information, it's a conversation starter. It's a conversation starter. Yeah. And I am a big advocate of communication, of just having conversations. And when I took this job, a lot of, media and a lot of people wanted to talk to me. And that was all, the one question that I probably got the most is, how do you impact change in Ferguson? How do you bring about change? How do you do this? What's your plan? And my answer is always the same. And it's very simple is, man, you impact change one conversation at a time.
Yeah.
That is my simple answer, man. If you put two people in front of each other and they are using their words, I think they can accomplish great things. That's right. And so, so when I got, when you sent me the information and I looked into it, I was like, okay, man, this is built, the foundation of it, of what I felt it was to get the conversation started. All right, man, what better place to have that conversation than here in Ferguson? That's right. So, so I didn't have any reservation about putting it on. My biggest kind of concern was, were people going to come out for it? Okay. Because that's one of the things that a lot of communities, a lot of police departments struggle with is, a lot of police departments are trying to do things and they want to be more involved and more interactive with the community. But we all struggle at times is getting the people to attend things or getting to the people. And so, man, I try to be intentional about taking as much stuff as I can out into the community and try to go to where the people are. Hey, this is where they feel more comfortable. So what can we do out there in their community instead of trying to host something necessarily like at the police department? But it was, man, it was a good experience. Now, we could always have a bigger turnout. Yeah. Yeah. And so, man, we didn't have, I forget how many people we had total, maybe between 20 and 30. I can't remember.
But with us, it's never about quantity. It's always about quality,
Correct. Yeah, I agree. But when you have something that is quality, man, you want to get it to as many people as you can. Yeah. And so the group that we had come out, man, it was a very diverse group. And that's one of the things that I don't think people outside of this area know about Ferguson or understand about Ferguson. It's just how diverse this community really is. And so it's a very diverse community. And so the attendance that we had come out that day was very diverse. Nice. And once we got around in our circle, and that's one of the things that I try to do. It's real easy for me to walk into a room, especially when I'm in uniform, and people look to me to be the leader of the conversation or to run the meeting of things. And, I understand that's what comes with my position. But one of the things that I try to get people to understand is like, look, man, I'm no more important than anybody else in this room. Okay, man, we are all, we're all part of this community and we all have, something to add to it. And so, and most of the times when I'm in a room, they'll set the room up where it's like a chair up front or a podium for me to stand at and for me to talk at the people. And I'm on one side and they on the other side. And so after we watched the film that night, the first thing I did was like, no, we're not going to do that. I want a circle, man. Nice. Let's put the chairs in a circle where everybody is even and equal with everybody else. So, you're not looking at me standing up and everybody else is sitting down or any, anything like that. Hey, man, we're a circle, man. We're all in this together. All right, man, let's just talk about, some of the things or some of the takeaways that people had, from the movie. And it just led to a really good conversation.
Very good, man. Now, people need to know we at that point, September 17th, we hadn't even met in person. We didn't
Correct.
meet in person until a month, more than a month later,
Hmm.
at the International Association of Chiefs of Police
Yeah.
Conference in Chicago, right? So we had talked a few times. You had participated in that. You know, you had faith that it was going to be a good program. Y'all did a really great job. Got some good feedback from some folks. And but when we got to the conference, the first session I went to, I remember you were sitting over there in the row behind me,
Hmm.
against the wall, and so that's where we actually met at a session. And man, I just wanted to share with you what something that really meant a lot to me. You know, we talked a couple times during that conference, and it was a several day long conference. And a couple days into it, you were walking along with your wife, and you saw me, and you brought her over, and to introduce her to
Hmm.
me. And that meant a lot to me. That was a little gesture, maybe, on the surface, but what that said to me was that uh, we had a level of trust between us, and a level of friendship between us, that you felt comfortable enough with introducing me to your family.
Hmm.
And I really, really appreciated that. That meant the world to me. And I hope that the kind of work that we do, you and I, we can get to that point where more people feel comfortable with relating to each other, as friends and community members together, and family, and just being one community.
And that's, man, that's the hope, man. That's the ultimate. That's the ultimate. Pinnacle of what we're trying to reach.
Yeah.
And so, and I can share a little bit, about that, or what goes into that for me is, man, I genuinely every day go out and just try to be a good person before I'm anything else. No title, no accomplishments, my degrees, education, throw all of that stuff aside. Man, I think, why God has blessed me in the life that I've had is because I really try to be a good person. And so I seek out good people. I seek out good people, and I want to associate with good people. And so, when we first got connected on LinkedIn, and just some of the things that I was seeing from you, and then, as we had some communication, some interaction, that was what resonated with me is, I mean, you felt that this work was important, that this work was needed to help
Yeah.
better things, and our history is what our history is. Okay. How do we learn from that, and how do we use that to make things better going forward, and make it better for
Yeah.
everybody, not just some people? How do we make it better for everybody? And no matter where you're at in your life, whether you're rich, you're poor, you're old, you're young, all right, man, love can help you accomplish some things, because
Yes.
we
Yes.
need love in everything. And
Yeah.
so, just, for me, man, that just spoke to, okay, man, this man has a good heart. And man, I can work any day with somebody that has a good heart. And those are the kind of people that, like I said, I seek out to try to work with. And so, man, the more people I can surround myself with, that I truly, genuinely feel, have a good heart, and are trying to do something to help people, and not to benefit themselves, but because, man, they recognize that it's needed.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Man, those are the kind of people that I want to be around. So I appreciate you for the work that you're doing, and the steps that you're trying to take to just do something, man, to put something out in the community, into the world, that can help people.
Thank you, brother. Now, look, I tried to get this in 30 minutes, but there's so much more I want to ask you. Do you have a few more minutes to hang out with us? How's your
Absolutely.
schedule?
Yeah.
Okay, good. And
Yes, sir.
we'll, all righty. So, coronavirus, let's go back to that for a second. Everyone is thinking about the coronavirus these days, as they should be.
Hmm.
It is a global crisis. For anyone who doesn't believe they're at risk, they need to wake up and realize that this is serious. I'm starting to hear more and more friends who have family members who have passed away from
Hmm.
this. How has the coronavirus impacted the Ferguson Police Department in the city of Ferguson?
I mean, greatly. Just like every other community, we're having to change um, our normal. And so, what does that look like? And so, just in trying to protect the officers, we've made a lot of changes to our operations. And so, some of our low priority calls, we're not sending the officers to go meet with people face to face. We're handling those calls over the phone. Or we've just created a reporting email address where people can email us information and pictures and videos, so we can take their reports electronically, just trying to cut down on the amount of just potential risk or potential exposure. Now for us, being police officers, there's no way for us to minimize that all together. And so we're just trying to do what we can do and implement the needed changes that we can put in place just to try to reduce the risk as much as possible. But it's something that's very serious. And like you said, everybody needs to understand, how serious impact that this could have, if it continues to spread at the rate that it's spreading. And so, we all need to do our due diligence and follow the guidelines that have been put out by our healthcare professionals to
Yeah.
make sure we're doing everything that we can do to minimize it. But it's, just thinking about, man, police officers, and they're out, especially, officers that work night shift and overnights. They're used to being, having a place open that they can go grab something to eat,
Yeah.
or just different things, or a certain store being open that they can go grab a drink, in the middle of the shift. And a lot of those places are closed, or you can't go.
Right.
They're only taking online orders and different things like that. And so just some of the day-to-day things that we generally never think about, or we never think about living without. All right, now we're having to adjust our daily routine, and just some of the things that we kind of took for granted at times. Now we're seeing just how pivotal some of these things were to our everyday lives. But we have to make these changes to ensure, all right, that we can minimize and reduce the level of the spread that we're seeing. So we're not unnecessarily endangering people.
And yourselves and your family members as well. I shared a post from a friend of mine who's a chief in the Chicago area this morning, and it really moved me because he was talking about how y'all, certainly everyone knows y'all run towards danger, just like
Yes.
firefighters run into fires. um, and so it's not an option for the police to stay away when there's trouble in the community. So not only are you coming up close and personal with, in some cases, people who are in danger, making dangerous situations, but now we've got coronavirus to worry about as well. And you have to go back to your family. You're potentially exposing family members who didn't sign up, for this, so to speak. They're not
Mhm.
the ones in uniform, right? So that kind of breaks it down on a really, really personal level. So if there's one thing that you could urge, not only citizens in your community, but everywhere, just one thing that's most important for people to realize, to keep from putting other people at risk, people who have to go back to their families. What do you say to that? What's that one thing?
I say, pay attention to the updates that come out from the public health officials. And, we see that, and it's everywhere, whether it's your local Department of Public Health, or if you go to the CDC's website. um, you know, Stay home as much as you possibly can. That's number one. Is you need to stay in the house. You need to stay home and minimize your contact with people. But if you do have to be out, and if you do have to interact with people, if you need essential items, you have to go to the grocery store for. Okay. All right. Make sure you're following the guidelines. Maintain the distance, the 6 feet away from people. When you touch things, make sure you're washing your hands as much as possible. One of the things that we're doing now when we have in all our patrol cars is hand sanitizer. Okay. Because my officers are in and out of the car so much and they have to touch so much, all right, they don't have sinks right there for them to wash their hands in the cars. And so, we have, stockpiles of hand sanitizer that we keep available to them so they can sanitize their hands as much as possible. And so, equipment, personal protection equipment has been one of, the big necessities in law enforcement that we're all struggling to get. So, so we're having to be mindful, with gloves and the mask, the goggles, the protective gowns. We have, some of that equipment on, and so we have it out there readily available for our officers. But the big thing, for the public is just follow the orders that have come out, follow the guidelines and the protocols. That won't only protect yourselves, but that'll protect everybody. And the sooner that we can have people following those and we can, slow down the spread of the virus, then the sooner, we can get on the other side of this thing and start working our way back to, to normal daily life. Okay.
I'm going to move on to a lightning round. And of course, this is the Love is the Answer podcast. And so we got to talk, about that a little bit. The L in love is the answer stands for learn. So in, let's say, 10 seconds or less, what have you learned about the city of Ferguson since becoming chief?
That there was a lot that I didn't see about this community on the news back when everything was going on and I was watching it from afar. There are a lot of real good people here, and there are a lot of good people here trying to do some good things for this community.
Awesome. And what kinds of things do you want people to know about you that they won't learn just by seeing you in uniform?
To know about me, that, man, I'm approachable and I'm always up for a good conversation, just about life. Every conversation doesn't have to be about the police or policing matters or anything like that. I think if we get to know each other, more on a personal level, I think we'll find out that we have a lot more in common than we do differences. And no matter what your background is or what walk of life you come from, I genuinely believe that just about people, period.
Awesome. So with that, we're going to go to a word association game that I've titled I Love.
Okay.
And I'll say a word, and you say what you love that associates with that word. For example, when I say sport, you say your favorite sport.
Okay.
Okay, here we go. Sport.
I love basketball and football.
Which one's a favorite?
Basketball.
Okay, all right. Favorite team?
I've never had a favorite team. I only had favorite players, and so I rooted for the team that my players played on.
Okay.
So yeah, never really had favorite teams.
All right. Food.
Oh. Man, it's a tie between a good burger and good pizza.
I'll tell you what, when all this clears up, next time you're out in Santa Monica, if you're in Santa Monica at all, I got the best burger in the world here, man. It's called Father's Office Burger. And there's one on Montana Avenue in Santa Monica, and we'll go there and you'll experience how good a burger can be.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna take you up on it. I was out there in Santa Monica last year.
Okay.
Yeah, around this time last year.
Man, okay, before we met. Okay.
Yeah.
Right,
before I came here.
Why didn't you hit me up, man? Okay.
Yeah, this was before we met.
All right, favorite dessert?
Chocolate cake.
Oh, yeah, I'm with you there.
Hands
Vacation
down.
spot?
Say that one again?
Vacation spot.
I don't have a favorite vacation spot because I like to go, I love to travel and I like to go out of the country. And so I like to go visit different places, different areas and different countries. And so very rarely do I go to the same place twice.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
so my favorite vacation place, I would say, is going somewhere that I haven't been before and just experiencing, that environment, that community.
Have you been to Hawaii?
I have not.
Oh man, you got to go. That,
It's been
yeah.
hard for me to, man, I'm addicted to stamps on my passport. And so when I would look at going to
Okay.
Hawaii and how much money it would cost me to go there, and I was like,
Yeah.
man, I could go to Europe or somewhere
Uh-huh.
and get stamps on my passport for the same
Right.
price as going to Hawaii. So that's why I haven't been to Hawaii yet. But
Well, you
it
can
is on my list. I'm going to go.
stop there on your way to Australia or New Zealand or somewhere else.
And that's probably how I have to do it because I haven't been to Australia. I hadn't been there yet.
Okay. All right. Hobby.
Ooh, playing sports, working out, but I would say my number one is cooking. I have a smoker, and that's my go-to, man. That's my safe haven. That's my safe place.
Nice.
Is just on the weekend. Matter of fact, I did it this past weekend. It's just
Okay.
fire my smoker and throw, just a big cut of meat on there and just let it cook all day long.
So, man, I gotta throw this out then because Bobby Kimbrough is in our film and he's a good friend. He's the sheriff in Forsyth County, North Carolina. Who's got better barbecue? Your part of the country or his?
Now, I'm not a native up here, and so I don't, I don't have that connection association with the Kansas City, the St. Louis barbecue stuff. And I grew up in North Carolina, so I'm from North Carolina, but North
I know
Carolina
that.
uses vinegar, and I'm not a fan of vinegar.
Okay.
And so yeah, I would have to say up here, just for the simple fact that a lot of the basics in North Carolina barbecue, you have it's a vinegar base is what they use, and I'm not a fan of vinegar.
Well, we might have to get him to do a little barbecue challenge with you one of these days, my friend.
I'm up for one of the things when I first got here. They have
Uh-huh.
an event here called the Taste in Ferguson, with just a lot of food vendors, and they do an annual competition between the police department and the fire department, a cook
Okay.
to raise money, for a charity or such. And the fire
Yeah.
department had always won that event, but this year I cooked the food, and we did Boston butts. We smoked Boston butts. And so we took home the trophy this year. The police department did for the first time.
All right, man. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, two more of these. Your TV or movie cop, and why?
Oh man, Will Smith and Bad Boys, Mike Lowry. Man, all day long, man. That was one of the things. And people ask me, it's funny. I went to talk to a school a few weeks ago, and one of the questions that one of the students asked me was, why did I want to do this, or how did I get in the profession? And man, Will Smith's character in the movie Bad Boys, man, I looked at that, man, when I saw that back in high school, whenever it came out, and I was like,
That was
man,
it.
hey, I'm like, that's me. Like I see that could be me. That's me. And so hands down.
Oh man.
Now, aside from the fact that, man, I'm married and got a family, Will, his character never did that. So I'm not the ladies, I'm the family man. But man, as cool as he was and how he handled things and just the action and everything, man, Will Smith and Bad Boys, man, that's my cop character.
All right, all right. And the last lightning round question of I love scripture verse or motivational quote.
Oh man. Man, that's a tough one. Man, that's a tough one. Just, man, I would say, and I can't quote it exactly, but the scripture verse that talks about that he will not forsake us.
Okay.
That's my go-to, and that's what I have to lean on every day, because, man, this is not an easy job, and it doesn't matter, where you're a police chief, where you're at. Being a police chief is a hard job, but it's especially hard being a police chief, you know, somewhere like Ferguson that has so much going on and so much that we're trying to overcome. And so, you know, man, it's tough just, you know, man, sitting in this seat, walking in these shoes. And you talked a little bit earlier about, you know, just the magnitude of making this decision for me to even, you know, take this job to come up here. And man, the biggest part of making that decision was just trying to lean on my faith and talking to, you know, man, my pastor, you know, back in Georgia and some of the other, you know, faith leaders that I had in my life, to just really lean on them and get that spiritual guidance for me and my wife, to make sure that we you know, we were making the right decision. We were making it for the right reasons. And I think that's more important than anything else is, you know, you don't know what storm you're walking into when you make a decision like that. You don't know how bad the storm is going to be until you're in the middle of the storm. And so, you know, I think really the only thing that we have to lean on is, all right, man, are we making the decision to walk into that storm for the right reasons? And one of the biggest things, you know, that I got from my pastor back then was, you know, man, this is the season that God has called you into. And when you called into it, man, you got to walk into it. Doesn't mean it's going to be easy. And it's not going to be full of, you know, of his challenges. But, you know, man, he won't forsake you because clearly, you know, clearly this is what he had in store for you. So that's, you know, that's one of the things that, you know, man, I have to go back to often, because, you know, this is a tough assignment. And just, you know, just try to focus on the many blessings that I know I do have. And that, you know, man, he's not going to leave me to handle this on my own.
You're right about that, my friend. Chief Jason Armstrong from Ferguson Police Department. I will keep you in my prayers, keep your family and your department and the city of Ferguson in my prayers. You're right. He will never leave us. He will never forsake us. And I appreciate all that you do and all that you are, my friend. Any closing words or shout outs that you want to give to anyone out there?
Man, I want to give a shout out to the Ferguson Police Department, to the officers and the staff that I have, because they work hard. They work extremely hard. You know, and everybody doesn't appreciate the work that we do. And that goes for, you know, a lot of places, not just in law enforcement, but, you know, a lot of industries. But, you know, definitely I want to thank the men and women that I work with and for the job that they do. And just, you know, a lot of people are praying for us in this community. And so I definitely want to give a shout out to all the people that always have some kind words for us and kind gestures for us, because as you said, you know, what could be a small gesture from somebody, you know, really means, you know, a big deal or is very impactful for somebody else. And so, you know, I definitely want to thank all the people that do shower us with love. And the people who don't shower us with love, you know, man, I appreciate, and I want to give a shout out to the people that are willing to come to the table to have those conversations that we need to have, to see what we can do to make things better. Like I said, I'm always open to have that conversation. You know, I don't mince words. I don't pretend to, you know, I don't pretend that I'm going to say everything that people want to hear. And I think that's the best way for us to communicate, man. We have to be honest. And you know, I'm not here to say what, you know, what somebody wants to hear. You know, I'm here to speak the truth, and I'm here to speak my truth. And I think if we have more people to get on board with doing that, sometimes, man, it's, you know, sometimes it's scary to do that. But I think it's absolutely needed. And the more we do that, the more we get to learn from each other, and the more we get to learn of each other. And that's where you really get to see, man, where somebody's heart is. And if you have a good heart and you're in the room for the right reason, you'll get a lot accomplished. If your heart is not in the right place, you'll get exposed for that, and then you'll, you know, kindly be exited from the room, so to speak. And so, you know, just, man, I want to thank all the people, man, like yourself, man, that I know, man, have a kind heart and a good heart, and the intentions in their heart for what they're trying to do, they know, you know, are needed and will benefit people, and not just themselves. And like I said, I'm not here to benefit myself. You know, I'm here to just try to lend everything that I can, you know, for this community to be successful moving forward.
Well, thank you. What's the website people can go to if they want to learn more about the Ferguson Police Department?
You can go to the city's website, fergusoncity.org, I believe is the website. To see a lot of stuff that we're doing, you can go to our Facebook page, Ferguson Police Department's Facebook page. Those are the two main places that they can find out information about what we got going on.
Great. All right. Well, I'm AJ Ali, and was here with my friend, Chief Jason Armstrong, Ferguson Police Department. You can find out more about the Love is the Answer movement at loveistheanswermovement.com, or just plug in hashtag trylovenow in your browser to see our social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And just keep loving each other, everybody. Peace and love to all of you. And my friend, Jason, aloha. I hope to see you sometime soon when all this COVID-19 stuff is over. Fire up that smoker, man, and make some good barbecue. I'll be over as soon as the planes are able to fly safely.
Sounds good, AJ. You take care, bud.
All right, my man. Peace. All right. Aloha.